Hey.
Alright, Joe, so there was a pretty funny game that was played on Sunday at 2 in the afternoon as the Detroit Pistons picked up their 6th win of the NBA season against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were then the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. The game was hysterical. No Cade Cunningham, the Thunder were at full strength for the most part, and it was just the first game in a while that the Pistons actually looked like an NBA team, and it just so happened that the Thunder also played some of their worst basketball of the season. It's just one game. You could probably throw it away if you are a Thunder fan or player. It's still funny regardless. Now, before we jump into the Jalen Duren stuff I want to get to, just a quick shout out to Jaden Ivey. I have no idea why his role has been so inconsistent this season when he has clearly been a top player on this team outside of like Cade Cunningham, Bojan Bogdanovic, who's dropping 30 every other night it seems. But Jaden Ivey just plays hard, hustles his ass off every single game, and Monty Williams was trying his best to keep him on the bench for as long as possible for some reason. Anyway, Jalen Duren also had what might have been the best game of his career in this one, as he had his first 2020 game, dropping 22 points and 21 rebounds. And looking at some season-long stats, this is nothing new. Jalen Duren has been a rebounding monster. He is first in the NBA in rebounding percentage, which for those of you who aren't fans of analytics and the advanced stats, that basically means that when Jalen Duren is on the court, he is grabbing the most possible rebounds out of everyone on the court, if that makes sense. For example, if he's on the court in a game for 100 total rebounds, then that means he himself is grabbing 22 or 23 of those rebounds, which is the best mark in the league. And for a simpler stat, he's also 5th in the NBA in just plain rebounds per game, averaging a little under 12, which doing all of this at 20 years old is absolutely insane. But there's also the irony that Jalen Duren looks like he's 35 already. So yeah, he is a god amongst men at the age of 20 in the NBA, which is just insane. And even just taking a step back and taking a broader look at things, it's awesome to see that someone in his position, where it usually takes a couple of years to develop and grow into the body needed to play center in the NBA, we have Jalen Duren, who has just already broken the mold and has been almost a day one starter. I mean, he took over that starting center job in Detroit in about 20-30 games. Now, granted, his competition was James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley, but it's still impressive regardless. Either way, center is not an easy position to just break into the starting lineup for right away. It's why I've been a huge fan of Derek Lively and what he's been doing this season. Same thing goes for point guards. That's just another position that usually takes some time to develop into. All of this is to say that Jalen Duren has progressed extremely quick and has been fun to watch. Now, I've been talking a lot about rebounding. Let's break down what Jalen Duren actually does on the court that makes him so effective. And to start, let's talk about his offensive rebounding. Because defensive rebounding, that's the easy part. You're usually all alone. Maybe you have to do a box out every now and then. But if you're someone like Jalen Duren, who is 7 feet tall and extremely, just broad and large with big muscles, you don't usually have to box out that much. You can kind of just sky up and get the rebound. But offensive rebounding is a different story. On that end of the court, you gotta battle through box outs. You have defenders that are physically trying to move you out of the way, and you have to fight back and gain position. Duren is currently 7th in the NBA in offensive rebounds per game with a little over 3, and he was crushing the Thunder in this game. Thunder, obviously a pretty undersized team, running Chet at the 5 and having Jalen Williams off the bench, who doesn't really even get minutes every night. But he took full advantage in this game, was crashing the offensive glass heavy. They just couldn't really find an answer for him. I counted 8 offensive rebounds in this game for Jalen Duren, and that doesn't even include the couple of plays where him just putting himself in a position to keep the ball loose off of a missed shot led to a teammate getting a rebound and another chance for his team, which is a whole nother thing that never gets labeled in the box score that Jalen Duren adds to a team. And overall, I just think offensive rebounding is a really underrated stat because it leads to your team getting an extra possession here and there. That's what the NBA is all about, is trying to get as many possessions as possible. Not to mention that when you do get an offensive rebound, it usually means that you are starting with the ball somewhere around the rim. And especially in Jalen Duren's case, he is a good enough scorer at this point around the rim that usually when he gets an offensive rebound, it's either a putback dunk, putback layup, a little post hook, or you're going to have to foul him and send him to the free throw line, where, again, they're called free throws for a reason. Now let's break down Jalen Duren's scoring, branching off of that. Because around the rim, so far in his career, he has been really good. Obviously, he is great as a roll man, although that is more when Cade Cunningham is on the court running pick and rolls with him. He is a devastating lob threat that teams have to account for. He also has just a really nice touch around the rim. He can hit you with some post hooks. He's got pretty good and underrated footwork, in my opinion, around the rim. It's nothing crazy like a Nikola Jokic or Alperen Şengün, but it's enough that it catches you off guard when you see this absolute, monster, 7-foot athletic demon around the rim. You expect him to just power up and dunk over you, but he does have some finesse to his game as well. Now what's interesting is Duren is clearly trying to extend his game to the mid-range area, and I've seen him knock down a few mid-ranges. He did so in this game as well. And while I think it's great that he is trying to add to his game and extend out to the free throw line, it's fine, but at the same time, he also just has these couple of plays every game, I feel like, where he just does some absolutely wild stuff and it usually ends in a really gross shot or a turnover. So while it's definitely detrimental to the team that he just has these possessions where he just kind of freestyles and it doesn't usually end well, he's on a 6-win team. I don't really see a problem with him experimenting, especially if in the future he's actually able to knock these moves down and add them to his bag. But yeah, for now, it's excruciating to watch. And let me be clear real quick, I'm perfectly fine with Jalen Duren, having the ball in his hands. I'm actually a fan of how the Pistons use him as a playmaking hub at the top of the key. There are even times where he'll grab the defensive rebound, and just take it up the court himself, and the Pistons immediately flow into an offense. I think all of that is great. I actually think that he is a pretty underrated playmaker and passer at that center position, and it's something that I hope he expands on that part of his game, because again, if the Pistons are able to use him as a bit of a creator at that center position, again I like the foul line area, that's going to be such a help to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and just helping them get downhill or just get open looks, because there were plenty of times in this game where Duren gave a handoff to Bojan Bogdanovic, and then it immediately flowed into a screen, and it led to some really good looks that Duren was also able to get assists on. Now, the one area of Jalen Duren's game that I do think is lacking in regards to the rest of his game is his defense. He's currently averaging under a block per game, which isn't bad, but it's also not great. I definitely think that just given his size and strength, he should be a better rim protector, and he just doesn't always give the best efforts on the defensive side of the court. The Pistons also use him as a drop defending big, so when his man is setting a screen for opposing teams' guards, he sits back and waits, and I feel like he could be utilized better. I think he could play a little higher. In fact, there are even some possessions in this game where he played some really good isolation defense. Even had one play on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander where he kept him in front of him and forced him to pass. And I think that's the part that frustrates me the most, is I see Jalen Duren have good defensive possessions here and there, but then, I'll also see other possessions where he just doesn't really guard anyone and just doesn't offer any resistance. And I just feel like he is wasting his athleticism out there sometimes. But again, maybe that's just a result of him being on a 6-win Detroit Pistons team that seems to just drain talent from its players. Maybe once he's in a winning situation and he has some more experience in the league, he will up his defense, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. Because as of now, when I think about the ceiling for Jalen Duren, I can for sure say that I fully believe he will be a great rim running threat that can also offer just some scoring around the rim. He's a great rebounder, thinking about maybe like a DeAndre Jordan type player. But that ceiling could definitely be elevated if, again, he leans into more of that playmaking stuff that he's already shown some great signs of, or if he can just show some more effort and consistency on the defensive side of the ball. I could definitely see him becoming like a all-star type big. Definitely has that big of a ceiling. He's only 20 years old. There is plenty of time for him to improve, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do with this. Because at the very least, I doubt that this will be the last time we see him go for 20 and 20 in a single game. That's all I got for this one. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of those good things, and I'll catch you on the next one.